Yo, what's up guys? It's Griff here. Welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be making a kind of tier list type formula on every single PvP school in the game. Now this will be at max level. I don't really have a tier list for low levels. I'm not really sure. So yeah, I'm going to be making it in a sort of like kind of tier list formula. I'm going to be popping up a tier list every single time with with updates every single time. I put a new school on it as the video progresses, and you'll see by the end where I ultimately rate every single school, because I do ultimately think that there are schools that do have losing matchups no matter what, but there is certain specific schools that are just way too strong, and if you just ward to a certain losing matchup, you can win every single game. But that's about it, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into the video, and let's start with the first school. Now with the first school on this tier list, this is the only school I will give an F tier to. I personally think Death has easily dropped from a solid C, D tier all the way down to F tier, all the way down. Their Scion's a great spell, and was a really great spell before this update, but now, honestly, any school can just Shadow Pip and kill you while you're in range. As long as they have a hit lined up whenever they put you in range, as soon as you strike and you don't have a shield up, they'll just kill you. It doesn't matter. Especially Myth and Fire, even Storm. Like Storm was already a losing matchup for Death, was already a tough matchup. But it's even more tough now because you can't even like manipulate Scion. You kind of just get one shot through a shield. Can't really do anything. So overall, I mean, Death does have Winged. It's a pretty decently strong spell, but then again, it's really low compared to the S'mores and Yaga and Rusalka and Mockenspiel and all those different 6-pip hits that are just better in every single way, even though they plague. Even though the winged plagues. And I mean, in general, they just don't have enough damage. Their poison does too little damage for an overtime, and they can't really pressure. The only way they can really have a chance of winning in this meta is just V-plague spamming. It's really the only way they can win. The only way you can win as a Death is playing super hyper defensive, almost as defensive as an Ice. That's really the only way you can get a win out of it. Having any sort of offensive strategy on Death is super weak now, and you can't really do anything and play to the Glass Cannon meta, especially because you don't have casts anymore. So there's just several reasons as to why his Death is bad. I think it's definitely worse than Storm in this meta, considering the fact that Glass Cannon is a little bit stronger now. You can run Goon's Hat and be a little bit safer, etc. On Storm, but that's like a little bit spoiler for what's up next. But overall, I don't really think the school is worth playing. So up next for C tier, we have Storm. Now I don't think this surprises too many people. I think Storm is a pretty strong school right now, actually, despite what people think. I think it actually has fantastic potential. I mean, you look at all Storm spells. They have Rusalka, a fantastic spell that does a lot of damage and can really throw somebody off guard if they don't pull a shield, or if they deck fail somehow, you know what I mean? Or even if you're putting it through a shield with a bubble or with one blade, you can do at least like 2k 3k through it, which is kind of crazy, right? You know what I mean? So you can really catch people off guard, do a lot of damage with Storm, and still have like 8k 8.5k health. It's a pretty strong school, honestly. And hopefully with more people using Steel Ward and more strong spells that can really work well with Storm, it'll get stronger and stronger, and hopefully with the new spells it'll get stronger. But as of right now, I don't see it going any higher than C tier, maybe even low B tier. It has its issues, and those are mostly consisting of like matchups and a lack of shield breakers. But hopefully as time goes on, Storm will get stronger, and we'll see more evolution with Storm players, and see more people in Warlord playing Storm, because there's only one or two playing it consistently now. So yeah, hopefully we'll see more flexibility and more play. Alright, so my next choice is Life. This might be a little bit surprising to some people, because Life actually can work. It's a pretty decent school, and actually is pretty good against certain matchups. The issue with Life for me is you kind of can't win that much without Ward. Like, against Fire, especially Trap Stack Fires, you really struggle. You can't really do much, and you end up just getting one shot in the end before you can even get a heal off. Not to mention Scion range is even harder to get into, because people just kill you while you're in the range, or kill you before you get into range. And the main reason I think Life is a little bit weak right now is because you have to ward to be effective. You have to ward, and you can't play a healing strat because you can't play the timer. It's just not efficient. It's not a consistent strategy. That's why you're only seeing a few lives in queue, and all of the lives you see in queue will just be warding. You know what I mean? So that's the issue with life for me. I think Blade Stack or Trap Stack life is definitely pretty worth it and effective, but it has to be done by a really skilled player who knows what they're doing. And so ultimately, life has too many flaws. Their healing is a little bit too inconsistent, especially whenever people can just shad and do double the damage. And while they do actually have some great options in certain scenarios, they don't have enough utility, and most of their utility relies on healing, and it's not really the meta anymore. There's too much glass cannons that are just ready to just one-shot every single life in the queue, unless they have ward. So that's the issue with life right now. I think it's a solid B tier, though. I think anybody who's really patient and a smart player can easily play life and take it to Warlord and climb as much as you want. It's just boring. It takes a lot of work, and nobody's really proved it yet. You know what I mean? There's not enough players playing life that show, oh yeah, no, life is really strong. No, there's maybe one life out of the 30, 40 games that consistently play, and they have 3 wards. So we just don't see enough life players. So yeah, that's why I'm very convinced it's not very strong, because it doesn't have, nobody has the patience to play it, and it's also just not very great, and in the end it's just not too strong. But yeah, that's ultimately what I think about life. I think it has a solid B tier, has a great foundation, doesn't really need a buff, doesn't really need a nerf. I think it'll just change and get better with time. As soon as we see less glass cannon play and more changes that help healing be a little bit stronger of an option, we'll see more lives. But for now, that's what I think. The next school coming up is the School of Ice, which is in the A tier. I think it's a fantastic school that's really consistent and honestly can beat almost any school, especially with wards. And obviously you'll notice this trend. If you ward to your weak school, you can get a lot more success. And we see that trend, especially with Storms warding against Ice. But overall, Ice just wins a lot of matchups. They're really consistent, and if you play really well, you can beat any player, pretty much. The only really schools you get all outstalled by is Balance and Life, but Lifes are really rare, and Balances, you can, if you play well enough, you can still win a timer match. But unfortunately, Ice is just in a position where a lot of the times in their matchups, they have to just play for timer. But ultimately, Ice is in a pretty strong state right now. I think a great Ice player can really capitalize on his power, considering it has one of the most powerful shads in the entire game. And in fact, I put it in the top 3. Abominable Weaver has a fantastic AoE and minion killer, Reindeer Knight, a really good overtime Frostbite, and they can pack as many shields as they want to. Not to mention the Blimp Pet, which gives insane amounts of bubbles as well as main deck bubbles. You're always winning Bubble War in the long term, which is really good. So yeah, I think Ice is a fantastic school, which is really underrated, and people should start playing it more because it's really good, and if more people have more patience to play it, they would, honestly. But yeah, I believe this is a really strong school, and it's really consistent. Now here's my next choice. This is the school I definitely think ties with Ice and deserves a solid A tier. It wins against insane amount of schools, has almost no bad matchups, and it's a fantastic school that is only limited by your own skill and experience. In terms of matchups, it can 50-50 with Fire, but generally if you have -90, you'll usually win. If you're playing Fire. Ice, it easily beats. Balance is a skill matchup as well. You easily beat Storm. Not to mention, I mean, I could go on. Like, they have a lot of really winning matchups, and overall, is like I said, it's only limited by your own skill. The combo of King Art Yaga is fantastic. Their control with minions, their ability to break shields, and their late game pressure is fantastic. They're probably the best late game pressure in the game, considering you're not allowed to shield. Because you'll just get Mystic or Minotaur or anything, you know what I mean? So, in my opinion, this is why I think that Myth is one of the strongest schools in the game right now, and I think it easily could climb up to S tier if we see a really good Myth player come out and play really effectively. Because Baba Yaga obviously is probably the best Shadow Pip spell in the entire game, and yeah, literally King Art is probably the best overtime in the entire game, and that's why it's the best combo in the game. But yeah, I mean, Myth has the best combo in the game. They have really good matchups, and easily could be S tier with the right gear setups and maybe even a ward. They could easily be S tier. Yeah, just a fantastic school, limited by your own skill, like I said, and yeah, has a lot of potential. Alright, now, for one of the first S tier schools, we have the School of Fire. Now, you might be thinking, No way, man. Myth is definitely better than Fire in this situation. I think Fire is way better. Fire is a million times better. Blah 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 blah. No, I don't think so. I think Fire is just way too fucking strong right now. Especially with -90 or with Frill Pet, you get ridiculous damage. And with -90, you get an insanely incredibly powerful spell that wins you almost every single matchup against Myth. You have so much utility, so much pressure with Fire Elf. The pressure you get from Fire Elf alone and Link as well is just insane. You have one of the best matchups in the game against Balance, which usually most hating schools can't really win. And not to mention, you have a really good stove. You have a fantastic strategy using Trap Stack with Scion, which is pretty decent right now. You have a stun and Pierce Blade hit. You have Dragon, which is actually one of the most nut spells to ever come out in this game. It does 975 total damage unsurged, which is unheard of for a fire spell. And it's crazy because it creates overtime pressure as well. And then you have -45 E for it, which is fantastic for mirror matchups. You have all the Shad moves, which are all fantastic and exceptional hits in every single situation. Hephaestus, Nautilus, I could go on. The school is fantastic right now. And if you have a high tier Nautilus, you can be even stronger than almost any school in the game. So I think Fire is one of the best schools in the game right now. It's only limited, like I said, by your own skill due to the fact that it's so strong. It pretty much only loses against Ice if they play really well. That's about it. I mean, they have so many winning matchups, and if you have the right deck set up, you can easily win as a Fire and cycle your deck correctly. And yeah, I mean, Fire's just a fantastic school. A lot of people would argue that you can interchange Fire and Myth and put them up and put either up in S tier depending on how well a player plays, and I think you could definitely argue that. Both are really strong, and I think Fire, in my personal opinion, is just exceptionally stronger, and that's why there's so many Fires in queue right now. Okay, now I don't know if everybody's gonna be agreeing with me on this, but I think personally, Balance is the best school in the game right now. I think personally it has so much offensive pressure, so much defensive pressure, and just so many spells they can use in so many different scenarios. Not to mention probably the best minion in the game, the best 5-pip spell in the game, like that's not a Shadow Pip spell. They just have so much. I think if you're running Pip Conserve on Balance, especially, you just get so much value out of Mana Burn, so much pressure out of Mana Burn, and overall the school is just fantastic. It's so good. Supernova is underused. It's still a pretty decent spell. Hydra, you can make some fantastic strategies with Hydra. Veiling still really good in certain scenarios against, like, you know, for example, Ice. There's just a lot of different reasons you'd want to play Balance. And I think personally, again, if you run Ward on this school, you cannot lose. You literally cannot lose. Because you win against, you pretty much can win against Ice. You can, if you're skilled enough, beat a Myth. You can obviously lose to Fire. But again, I've seen so many balances Ward to Fire. All you need to do is just Ward to Fire, and you literally cannot lose a matchup. It's only limited by your own skill. The more defensive you play, the better, honestly. I think there's a lot of balances in queue there, and there still be for a while, because it's just exceptionally good at controlling the game. And it's always just going to be the control school. It has so many utility spells that are so strong right now. Hydra's a great finisher, and is in a great spot in the game, and honestly, probably could still be strong even after a nerf. But personally, yeah, that's what I believe. They also have the best pot boiler in the game. I kind of forgot that. They can break a shield and then get a shield at any elemental school, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that's personally my list. I think Balance and Fire are interchangeable. I think they're both really strong, and you could change any. Honestly, I think if you're saying the top 3 schools are Bal, Fire, and Myth, there's not really anything wrong you're saying. They're all fantastic schools. They can be interchanged depending on the player, and they all have an insane amount of utility and pressure, which can be used anytime. So, I mean, overall, this is my opinion on the schools right now, and if you have any disagreements or anything you'd like to say or input in the comments, let me know. Remember, I stream on Twitch every single day, or almost every single day. Twitch.tv/LostGriff. Put it on my Discord as well. I announce whenever I stream, and I'm going to try to make a schedule soon that's consistent. Thank you all so much for tuning into the video. And again, if you have anything you disagree with, make sure to put it in the comments. Much love, guys. Take care, and peace out.